Just waiting for the AP macro group to get in, and then we'll start. We're going to be doing today GDP, unemployment, inflation, national income statistics, calculating GDP, calculating unemployment, inflation, and just going over the basics on this. How's everybody doing?
Good, how are you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. What's new?
Nothing.
Nothing?
Yeah.
Well, there's lots of new from my point of view.
What's new?
Did you notice all the things that I posted?
No.
You have to do a CPR class or a CPR. You have to take the quiz and watch the video.
Okay.
It's a requirement for graduation. Go figure on that one.
Huh.
You know, it was last year. Miss Paloma got all the details. Miss Broadus and I and her are posting it all. So it's going to graduate. It's one of those requirements that legislation did last year. I've never done it before, and I guess they chose our group to do it instead of English. So look for it. It's an assignment due next Friday. It's watched. There's like 3 videos and then a quiz. I don't think there's any requirement for you to pass anything except for just take it so we can show them proof that you do that. Did you watch my video, Oriana, or no?
I haven't watched it yet. I've been really busy today. I'm sorry.
Wow.
I'm going to watch it after this. I'm trying to finish all the slides for tomorrow.
Yeah, I know. I know. You're pretty much on track. You're doing quite well.
I hope so.
Well, let's see. Yeah, you're a little bit behind, I guess. Are you doing? I just was looking at the open-ended questions that you've done. There's 19 of them, and you've done right now 5 or 6.
Yeah.
So
I'm a little behind, but I'm working really hard to try and have it done by tomorrow.
Yeah, I just was trying to. I thought you were doing a certain number per day.
Yeah, I was trying to do that.
Didn't work?
No.
Okay, because I thought if you were doing like 20 slides a day, that would be actually pretty good. That's kind of like in my head, trying to figure out how many should you do, and then just do that. That way it makes it easier than doing it all at the end. So
yeah, I fell a little bit behind.
What do you think is a good way for us to review AP Gov? Should we do the same kind of thing, or should we use office hours, or what do you think?
I mean, not a lot of people come to office hours, which is sad.
True. I'm just wondering how to review the best way. I mean, I'm probably going to put assignments up and kind of like, you know, I realize some people aren't going to take the AP and some will, so I might be doing some essays and some questions, or maybe just doing questions so people can just review and go over. Even now, when I look at it, when we talked about the Declaration of Independence and the Articles of Confederation, that was like almost, to me, years ago. We've gone through so much in this time. It's like, oh my gosh. Well, I guess this is probably us. So I'm going to go ahead and start. This is recording, and we're going to be showing this. So I want to show you where to find the videos. So I'm sharing my screen, and this is the document, the AP Macro Review document. And so it looks like this: macro links, resources, and all this. So these are at the bottom. I put, you guys asked for the problem set and the summary PowerPoint. So this is Monday's review, and that's I put it on YouTube, and that's the link. And then this is Tuesday's review with the questions. So if somebody misses something, it'll be kind of like, I figure we'll do it here. And then I might even just make another place and just say, these are our review ones. They're an hour long, but they go over what we did. And if you miss it, you can make it up and do that. And that's kind of fun. So everybody know where this is in the, I've shared this with you, correct?
Yeah.
So you all know where that is. Okay, good. Sounds good. All right. So now today is Unit 2. So here is what we're looking at. It's basically national income statistics. So I kind of did circular flow, but I'm going to show it again. But we're going to mostly do GDP, components of GDP, real versus nominal, and then inflation measurements, nominal versus real, costs of inflation, and then unemployment. We're going to define it, measure it, the types of unemployment, natural rate of unemployment. That's what we're going to cover. Then I'm going to ask you guys, what do you want to do for tomorrow's like questions and things like that? What do you want to look at? What do you want to review? And go from that. So does everybody remember these fun topics?
Yeah.
A little.
A little? Okay, that's fine. Fair enough. All right, so circular flow. Remember, we're not going to be drawing any graphs, but you might have to explain something and use it. This could be a second question. Household supply, land, labor, and capital, entrepreneurship to the resource market. Households demand goods and services from businesses, and that's in the product market. So household supply in the resource market, businesses demand in the resource market. Households demand goods and services in the product market, and then businesses are the suppliers in that. So basically you can see businesses demand household resources and supply goods and services to the product market. So it's a circle. So we have that, and it's basically, you have the product market, the factor market. Don't forget, government takes things out, puts things back in. Here is the circular flow, product market on the top, factor market on the bottom. And then basically I always look at putting the money on the outside line, is kind of like how I do it, but they're putting the products here and the money on the inside. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if, how you label it. It's a circle, it goes around. But most of my textbooks, things that I've seen, is typically money's on the outside, products on the inside. But just so long as you get the arrows in the correct way. So basically you've got businesses, supply goods and buy products, households demand the products, and it goes there, and then they send the money here, going over here. And then firms pay wages, interest, profits. Most of the time we know about wages goes here, we get our income, and then we supply labor and give that to the companies. So when we look at the product market and the factor market, when we look at these things, a lot of times I look at, this is the demand market, this is the supply market. So I put that right there for supply and demand also. So just a little review on macroeconomics. It's the study of the large economy as a whole. It's the study of the big picture. Instead of analyzing one consumer, we analyze everybody. Instead of one business, we study all businesses. We did it in the Great Depression, and thank goodness for right now. We're seeing what the government is doing. with, I think, a $500 billion package, another $500 billion package, a $2.2 trillion package. They're basically trying to stimulate the economy. Now, Jack and I and Oriana and you guys, we can argue how to spend the money, how to do it, who to give it, who is the best to give it to somebody. So I might argue with Jack, people get it, and he might say, no, businesses need it. But the idea is we still need the stimulus. Remember, people is C, businesses is I. Businesses have to hire people. So, Jack's not wrong. I'm not wrong. It's just, it's our priorities and what we want to do. And in a lot of these cases, in what's going on, is it right to give, $600 extra to people that are unemployed? You got to make the decision. What's going to help best? Some people are talking about, let's not have people pay rent for the next 3 months and just, cancel that. Let's have all the bills be stopped. I don't know how you would ever do that. I have no clue, but these are things that kind of like we're looking at now. Taxes, at this point in time, I don't think anybody is talking about a tax break or tax cut at this time. It's just not fast enough, not quick enough. People need money in their pocket now. Getting a break next year is not going to help them. But, we can discuss, we can argue, we can talk about what's better. I definitely I don't know what Jack thinks, but when you hear that the Lakers got money, what do you think about that, Jack?
Not much. I don't think that should happen.
Correct. I think we all agree it should go to mom and pops. It should go to small businesses. But when you've got a big business getting stimulus money, and trust me, we're all hurting. The economy is going down, but it's not. Lakers, some of these large companies will be able to weather a storm. I've got a small business. I've got a parent business. They're not going to be able to make it next month. So I would prioritize people, small businesses, and do that. And that's one reason why I think Ruth Chris Steakhouse returned their money, what they got for it. And certain other people are returning money, which is fine. I just wonder why they got it in the first place. So government didn't understand in the Great Depression how to fix a depressed economy with 25% unemployment. And I'm not sure if we know now, and we're going to hit maybe 20, 25, 30% now. So it's going to be difficult. We use macro to measure the health of the whole economy. We use macro to guide government policies to fix problems. So these are the 3 goals for every country and every economic goal that they all have: promote economic growth, limit unemployment, and keep prices stable. So we're going to look at each one of these. We're going to do growth first, then we're going to do unemployment, and then prices. How do we know how well the economy is doing? Economists collect statistics on production, income, investment, and savings. This is national income accounting. Typically, it's the BLS.gov, Bureau of Labor Statistics. Also, the Bureau of Economic Analysis, BEA.gov, collect a lot of the numbers. Also, census.gov. They actually do, it's kind of weird, the census does the international trade. So they'll do the imports and exports numbers, and they do the reports on that for our trade deficit and trade surplus. And then the most important measure of growth and how we really look at it is GDP, gross domestic product. It's the dollar amount, the total of all final goods and services produced within the nation's border in 1 year. When I first started econ in basically 1997, when I took it in the 80s, we looked at gross national product most of the time, but it kind of switched, I would say, in the 90s, 2000, that we look at gross domestic product. And they're both comparable in the United States. Remember, gross national product is the total dollar value of all final goods and services produced by the nation's people and companies in 1 year. So that's basically the difference. One is with our companies and our people, and one is in our borders. Remember, it's dollar value. It's measured in dollars. It's final goods. It's not intermediate goods or the goods used to make other goods. It's typically in 1 year, so we get it quarterly, but we annualize it. So there's no used goods. There's no intermediate goods. And then really you have to have a dollar. You have to have a transaction. So somebody that basically, takes care of their old mom and dad and they don't get paid for it. That's not included. A housewife's not included. A lot of times babysitting or people that do things without dollars is not included. How can you measure growth? And I don't think there'll be calculations, but they might give you some numbers and say what to do or see what happens. But year 2 minus year 1 over year 1 times 100 is the typical way that you would find economic growth, find inflation, find unemployment, find this. So always use this year 2 minus year 1 over year 1 times 100. So that's basically it. I'm going to go quickly over the calculations. It's more, remember in this, it's application, what to do. So I'm going to be looking at this. There's not going to be graphs. So we'll see. What's not included in GDP? Like I said, intermediate goods, no multiple counting of things. It's only final goods, the price of the finished car, not the tires, the radio, the seats, the hubcaps, those kind of things. Non-production transactions, so all financial transactions, nothing is produced. So stocks, bonds, and real estate are non-production transactions. Used goods, non-production transactions. An old car, used clothes. Non-market illegal activities, illegal drugs, unpaid work. This is my dreaded babysitter. They get paid underneath the table. And 2 ways to calculate GDP. The only one that you're going to need to worry about is the expenditures approach. And I do realize people feel, I think I told you in class, a student was really upset. She hated looking at expenses. And on her project and on her thing, she did the income approach. Typically, it is mentioned in most textbooks, but it's not covered. It's really C plus I plus G plus NX. It's that type thing, but the income is where you'd add up all the wages, you'd add up all of the dividends, you'd add up all of the interest income, you'd add up all the rents that are paid, all of the profits, and basically you get the same result. The expenditures equals your income. So remember, in the economy, whatever is spent is also income to somebody else. So if I spend money in Circle K, it's income for Circle K and it's my spending. Government spends money. It is an expenditure, but it's also income for somebody. It might be income for a contract like IBM. It might be income for me as a teacher because I work for the government. It might be, income in so many different ways. So income is one person, the expenses on the other. Remember, they generate the same amount. Every dollar spent is a dollar income. So the income approach and the expenditure approach are the same, equal. And then there's the formula. You will need to know it. You might have some calculations on it, I don't know. But C plus I plus G plus NX, remember it's business investment, that's plant, equipment, computer, it's things that go into in the business. C is about 70% in general over time. Business is typically about 15%. Government is about 20%. And sadly, net exports has been in the minus 5%. It's been negative for most times. Typically, you would see in a lot of recessions, we know that we import less in a recession when income is going up. So we have had probably a quarter here and there where we had a surplus for that quarter, but we haven't had a year since the 80s where this has been positive. So net exports typically right now, I think is like 2.5 trillion for exports. Imports are like 3 trillion, and it's like minus 500 billion for net exports. 4 components. We did this, and I just thought I'd bring it up there just for examples. Little Caesar Pizza, that's consumer spending. Business puts money back into their own business, machinery or tools. The government spending on bombs, tanks, roads, Hoover Dam, things like that, not Social Security. And then net exports, realize it's exports minus imports. It matters which comes first. The value of 3 Ford Focuses minus 2 Hondas, and it should be a negative number. So it's C plus I plus G plus NX. What counts? So this is kind of interesting. Goods that are produced but not sold. So it's only production. Goods produced by a foreign country in the United States. So Japan makes Hondas and Toyotas in Tennessee and Alabama and different places. Government spending on the military. Increase in business inventories, because remember that's production. That's not sold. So if we aren't selling things, but the shelves are growing, that increase in business inventory is included in GDP. What it does not count, intermediate goods, tires sold by Firestone to Ford, but if the tire is sold to me as the end user, it does count. Used goods, so that would be a different year, so that would be 2018, 2017. Non-market activities, illegal or underground, and typically I'm looking and seeing this is in the $4 to $5 trillion estimates wise. Transfer payments like Social Security, and then stock transactions, stocks, bonds, those kind of things are not counted. Shortcomings of GDP, leading to GDP being understated, meaning it's less than it should be. Non-market activities, services of homemakers does not count. Leisure does not include the value of leisure, does not include improvements in product quality, and then the underground economy. So these are reasons why GDP might be understated than where it is. And this is reasons why GDP would overstate it. Damage to the environment, so like if there's a tornado, hurricane, that is included, especially when the things are rebuilt and redone, that's part of GDP. We spend probably the most, not probably, we do spend the most in the world on healthcare. And we spend like, it's getting closer to 20% of GDP on healthcare, but it's really not preventative things. It is we're spending on people being unhealthy. We're spending it on operations. We're spending it on diabetes, different things like that. We're spending more when people are being unhealthy. Part of that could be those surgeries to get out the fat and things like that, surgeries for different things that we have on that. Well, I also have money that's spent to fight crime, prisons, police officers, jails, locks, gates, things like that, for crime, for worried about being safe. We spend on that, and that's included, and that's part of why GDP might be overstated than maybe what you think it should be. So for each situation, identify if it's included in GDP. So you say, yes, it is. And is it C, I, G, or NX? So number one, $10 for movie tickets. Is it included? And what part of it? I'll take an answer from anybody. Oriana? $10 for movie tickets. Is it included?
It's not included.
It would be included.
It would?
It would be included, and it would be C. That's consumer spending.
Ah, yes.
Okay. $5 million increase in defense expenditures. Jack, is that included?
Yes.
Yeah, it's government.
It's government spending, right?
Government spending, correct. $45 for used textbooks, econ textbooks. Is that included?
No, they're used.
Good. Ford makes a new $2 million factory.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what would that be?
What does the I stand for again?
Business investment.
That would be business. That would be, I stands for investment,
Okay.
but it's not the stocks and bonds. It's business investment. It's plant and equipment.
Okay.
$20,000 Toyota made in Mexico. Is that included?
No.
No.
No, it's not made in the U.S. borders. $10,000 profit from selling stock.
No.
Nope. Okay. $15,000 car made in the U.S., sold in Canada.
Yes.
Yes. What is that included in?
Export?
Are you making a guess? Yes,
I think
It's
exports.
net exports. So it's an export. 10,000 tuition to attend college?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, it's a
Yeah.
yes. It's a yes. Now, and what is it? C, I, G, or NX?
C?
That is correct. $120 Social Security payment to Bob.
No.
No.
Correct.
No.
It's not. It's a transfer payment. Farmer purchased a new tractor.
Yeah.
Now, is it correct? Is it C or I?
Wouldn't it be I?
It is I. What if I said Laura buys a new tractor?
And that would be
And it's C.
That would be C. But because it's a farmer, you're assuming it's for their business, and then it would be an I. If it's just you and I, because like my father-in-law's got a John Deere in Montana, that would be C. But in this case, if it's a farmer, that's for his business, that's I. Okay. All right. Some formulas, some things, and just real GDP equals nominal over the index, the deflator. And I don't like this as much as I like this one. Let's see if I have it. Maybe I don't have it. Oh, well, we'll use it. And maybe I'll even add those for you. So, and that's fine. So I have some that have the nominal equals. Remember that nominal equals the formulas on this, but real equals nominal over the deflator.
Yeah.
The deflator equals nominal over real times 100. And that's the one that I use quite a bit. So if you wanted to put the deflator equals nominal over real times 100, and this is how we calculate it. And again, I don't think there's going to be calculations. And remember, I would have the formulas on the cheat sheet. So have that, so just in case. So I would have all of these, and I think I do on those papers that I gave you, that they have it. So I would print those out and just have the formula there just in case you need to. So that'll be kind of nice. There's nothing for you to memorize. Have all the information that you have at your fingertips. And then if it says, okay, they want you to calculate something, they want you to find the growth in GDP. Well, oh, there's the formula, there's that, I can do that. So basically, we want real GDP. So that the whole thing is we want real GDP and we want it to find out, did we make more stuff? And nominal might not be a case where we made more stuff. Nominal might be we made less stuff or we made the same amount of stuff and what happened is prices went up. So just in general, when you're looking at real versus nominal, you want real numbers first. Real is accounted for inflation, nominal is not. And it's just, and typically what we see is the nominal. And we probably see it because it makes politicians look better. Whether it's Donald Trump, George Bush, whether it's, Barack Obama, they would love and tout the nominal numbers because the nominal number is going to be higher. It's going to be higher than real. It's going to be, because realize if, inflation is 2%, and it's been between 1% and 2%, and then Trump was having nominal GDP going up by 3 or 4%. 3 or 4% sounds good. 2% or 1.5% doesn't sound as good. So they typically are part of the problem with it. They're going to always promote the nominal, but realize we want the real to know, are we building more stuff? Are we making more stuff? And that's the whole goal of what we're going to do. So real per capita GDP is basically our number that we use for standard of living. It's where we compare ourselves to other countries. So we look at our $45,000. We look at then Kuwait's $150,000, and then we try to compare. Now remember, they're basically it's their, real GDP divided by their population. Ours is about $45,000. My son, of course, in school says he goes, I want my $45,000. And I'm like, sorry, you can't have it. You don't make any money, but it's per person income. So it's real GDP times divided by the nation's population. And that's what we have. And that's what we compare. Does GDP accurately measure the standard of living? Yeah. So the GDP does not, but doing it per capita, it does. So remember, and I think there was one question that I asked you in the problem set, if you're trying to figure out these things, what do you need? So you need basically real GDP. You might need the inflation rate if you have nominal, and then you need the population. So you need these things to see what it is. Real per capita GDP is real GDP divided by population. On average, how many products each person makes, how much income they make. It's the best measure of standard of living. Okay. Why do some countries have higher GDPs than other? So technology would be one reason. The economic system would be another reason. Capitalist countries historically have had more economic growth than command economies or even socialist economies. Typically, I did show you a slide where I think one of the Scandinavian countries was comparable to the US, but typically I see a lot of times Europe are being in the 20 to 30,000 range, where we're at 45,000. So I see our income is higher in general than most of the socialist countries. And then when you look at the countries, it's definitely a lot higher. So economic system is big, capital is big. So this is where I worry about the United States, because we're not making our machinery and tools. We're not doing those things. We've got a lot of, still, we have a lot of land, we've got farming, we've got those things, but we're being one of those economies that's concentrated more on consumer goods than capital goods. And one of the slides that I'm going to show you and that we went over is if we invest in capital goods, that's better for the economy in the long run than if it's consumer goods. You basically forego a little bit today to get more tomorrow. Human capital is also extremely important. That's our education, that's our training, that's what we have there. And then natural resources is extremely important. And you're looking at, and I worry, and I seriously do worry about all of Middle Eastern countries. If we ever get off fossil fuels, if we ever get rid of oil as a commodity that we use as much as we do, what is going to happen in the Middle East? Because most of the Middle East is desert. They have the one product, which is oil. And if you think things are bad now, what do you think will happen when there's no more oil or people don't need the oil? And then what is going to happen in the Middle East? Because they really do need to figure out how to have some other commodities. What is economic growth? Increase in real GDP over time. Increase in real GDP per capita over time. Why is it the goal of every economy and every society? Economic growth provides better goods and services. Economic growth increases wages and standard of living. Economic growth allows leisure time. Economic growth means the economy can better meet wants. Now, I typically, and in general, if you make more money, you should have better education. If you make more money, you should have better health. If you make more money, you should have better leisure. And in general, that's kind of like we do in many cases when we compare to other countries. We are pretty good in these things. We're not the best, we're not the top, but it is things where we are better in many of these things. So we look at economic growth, we get better goods and services, increased wages, more leisure time. Questions on GDP? Anything you want me to review again? And Abby, I'll show you where these videos are because I post them and I'll show you where they are at the end of this so you can see yesterday's video plus this one when I finish it where it's going to go.
Okay, sorry. Thank you.
No problem. So any questions on GDP that we just covered? Okay. So now we're going to look at inflation. It's the rise in general price levels. Some prices go up, some go down, but this is it's a basic, more prices go up than do go down. When you have inflation, it reduces your purchasing power, it reduces the money in your pocket. We basically look at the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, and that is 300 of the typically commonly purchased items. And they're in about 78 urban areas. So they look throughout the country. They don't go to rural areas, but they go to suburban or urban areas, about 78 of them in the country. And they go to stores and they just do surveys on prices of these 300 products. Doesn't change that often, but once in a while you'll see an iPhone go in, the iPod go out, or something like that. You'll see new products that are in, takes them out. But typically it looks at rent, looks at entertainment, might be movies, might be looking at gasoline, housing, typical expenses that people have. And then basically you get a CPI, it might be 125, and that is the number this month. It's 125, and then you need to compare it to something else. what was it last year, what was it the year before, what was it last month, to see did prices go up or go down. So we track prices of the same goods and services each year, 300 products, like I said. The inflation rate is the change in prices in 1 year. Also, we compare changes to prices to a base year. Typically, it's 1982, but it could be whatever I say the base year is. So basically, your base year is 100, and if prices today were the CPI was 125, then your prices went up 25%. So you'll have all of the formulas. You make sure you keep them so you have them. So realize, again, it's CPI 2, which is the most recent year, minus CPI 1, that's the farthest year, divided by CPI 1 times 100. So this is the same formula as calculating GDP growth, but now instead of using GDP numbers, we're just using the CPI. So it's like 179.9 minus 177.1 over 177.1. Boom, there you go. Multiplied by 100, then there's where you go. And that's calculated inflation. Make sure you have this formula there, just have it, and just make sure you have it. I think I've given it to you, but just make sure when you're looking for these, make sure you have how to calculate the increase in economic growth or calculate inflation and so on. Causes of inflation. Sorry about the slide, but government prints too much money, and this is the quantity theory of money. Government that keeps printing money to pay debts ends up with hyperinflation. There are more rich people, but the same amount of products. Result is banks refuse to lend and GDP falls. So World War II, Germany, Brazil, Peru, Bolivia, right now Venezuela is extreme inflation. And I put the caveat in there. Government prints too much money and it's in your hands. This is very true. The last time the government printed money, we printed $2 trillion in 2008, 2009. It did not go in people's hands. It went into the banks. It went overseas. So inflation didn't go up. It's got to get into our hands. It's got to be that happy kid that you saw from Zaire that was smiling and happy at a handful of money. It could be the wheelbarrow of money in that person going to buy the loaf of bread. In 2008, 2009, nobody got any extra money. It wasn't in the system and we didn't have the inflation. This is the quantity theory of money. Again, this is a formula that I would just have you have. But the basic idea of this quantity theory of money is you increase the money supply, you increase prices. So if this is constant and this is constant, if you increase this, then this has to go up. So basically the idea is the higher the money supply, the higher the prices. If you increase the money supply, you will also increase GDP. P times Y is GDP. And some of my monetarists, some of my people like Milton Friedman and others just realize they like this better than fiscal policy and monetary policy. They just think, hey, if we just increase the money supply 3% every year, this stays the same, and then basically GDP will go up 3% every year. We don't have to do anything crazy, don't have to do any, doing all the building roads and all these things, just do this. So the main idea of this is basically if you increase the money supply, you're going to increase prices and you're going to increase GDP. And that's kind of like what we're doing. So that's pretty money. The other two are demand pull inflation. That's too much money chasing too few goods. That is where demand is increasing. That's what we're pretty much doing when government buys or government does government spending and say we build schools, we build roads, we build those kind of things. The aggregate demand curve will shift to the right, and that means a higher price level and greater output. So demand pull is when we actually do fiscal policy and we're moving aggregate demand and shifting it to the right. Cost push inflation. This is a supply shock. This is like OPEC cutting back on oil production. And this is where supply is actually decreased. So the aggregate supply curve will shift to the left, resulting in a higher price and decrease in real GDP. So these are the three causes, three ways that inflation goes up. you'll have to know demand pull, cost push, and then basically it's printing too much money, increase in aggregate demand, or decrease in aggregate supply. Then you have, this one is good to know, real interest rate equals nominal minus inflation, nominal equals real plus inflation. So these you should have in your notes, you should have them in the forms and papers, so make sure you look for those, check those off and do that. Then again, this is the same as real GDP, it's nominal over the index. So we had real GDP over nominal over the GDP price deflator. This is real income over nominal income divided by the price index, CPI. Winners and losers, remember there's more losers than winners. The only winners are the debtors, the people that borrow money. They'll be repaid with cheaper dollars, or those who anticipate inflation faster and quicker than inflation happens. That's very rare. It's there in the textbook answer. And then losers are multiple, even more. I'm looking at savers, investors, creditors, people with fixed income, retirees. And then I also put, laborers, wage earners lose. If you're looking at consumers, they lose. People that are doing mortgages and borrowers lose. So a lot of losers. Don't say everybody, but know who the winners and losers are with inflation. Okay. So, man who lent out $500 to his friend in 1960, still waiting to be paid back. So is this person hurt by inflation?
Yes.
Anybody? Yes. Now, say he was being paid back, $5 a year or whatever. Would he still be hurt by inflation? Would he be hurt by inflation? The answer is yes. Any lenders, creditors are hurt by inflation. A tenant who's charged $850 rent each year and it doesn't go up. Is he helped or hurt? If I've been paying $850 per year for the last 20 years, I'm going to pay it for $850 for the next 20 years. Am I hurt or helped by inflation?
Helped, right?
You're helped, correct. You're not hurt. You're actually winning on this case. Your landlord's getting screwed. Elderly couple living off fixed retirement payment of $2,000 a month, helped or hurt by inflation?
Hurt.
They are definitely hurt. They're actually destroyed by it. Man that borrowed $1,095 and paid it back in 2006, helped or hurt? Look at inflation between 95 and 2006. Was he helped and hurt by inflation?
Helped.
He was helped. Borrowers win in inflation. Woman who saved a paycheck from 1950 by putting it on her mattress, helped or hurt?
Hurt.
Absolutely hurt. Absolutely. So remember these. Just think of savers, they get hurt. Creditors get hurt. Fixed income get hurt. They all kind of do. Now in this one, because they're getting the same no matter what, and my father-in-law did that. He had a tenant for over 15 years and didn't change their rent once. Prices went up, went down, all these things. They love that situation. Okay. So the CPI is, remember, 300 products. GDP price deflator is every product made in the United States. CPI is the most common number. It is the one that we use all the time, and it's one that I think we probably shouldn't use. But it hasn't changed. It hasn't changed that much. We have GDP deflator is all of the prices of all the things we produce in a year. I think the GDP deflator is a more accurate determinant of prices, but we just don't use it. But remember, GDP deflator includes things that are basically produced but not sold. CPI is things that are sold and what's then done, and it's only the 300 items. So just realize that this is the formula for the GDP deflator. You'll find it nominal over real times 100. So make sure you have the different formulas in an area in case they ask you to do something like that. There are some problems with CPI. Not only it's 300 products, so it's only a few products. Substitution bias is basically if price of apples go up, you don't buy apples, you buy oranges. So CPI might be higher than what consumers are really paying. New products. CPI basket may not include the newest consumer products. It might take 3 to 4 years to get there. The result is CPI measures prices, but not the increase in choices. Product quality. CPI ignores both improvements and decline in product quality. So CPI may suggest that prices stay the same even though economic well-being is improved. Because typically, Apple, what did they do? Apple will keep the price of their phone the same. In general, they did. I think it was with the 5, the 6, the 7, whatever. The phone was the same price, but the quality of the product was better. And the CPI does not adjust for that, doesn't make anything with it. It's basically, its prices stay the same. So here are those formulas. So remember, you have those, put them aside. If you need it, you can need it. Anybody have any questions on inflation? I'm hearing nothing. So inflation.
Can you go back a slide real quick?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Unemployment. So we're going to be looking at unemployment, the number of unemployed over the labor force times 100 to get a percent. And we will see what it's going to be. Now, typically, since Obama and 10% and going down with Trump, I think the lowest it got you can tell me, I think it was like 3.5%. The natural rate of unemployment, we'll go over what it is and we'll review it. Typically, we say it's 4 to 6%. So the natural rate of unemployment has actually been higher than the unemployment rate in the United States for the last maybe 6 months, year. Now we'll see what happens with it. The labor force is the total employed and unemployed. But remember, the labor force and the unemployed do not include the discouraged workers, the dropouts. So unemployment should be about 5%. That's normal. That's what we should have because that's what people fire, get quit, seasonal type things happen. You are considered to be employed if you work for 1 hour as a paid employee. Part-timers are counted as employed. You're temporarily absent from work. You might be illness, you might be on strike, you might be on vacation, but you're still considered employed. You work for 15 hours or more as an unpaid worker, typically in your family farms and stuff like that, you're counted as employed. Unemployed, you must be looking for work, at least one attempt in the last 4 weeks. When my wife got it a few years ago, she would have to give the state of Arizona the companies that she went looking for jobs, who the employer was, the address, their phone number, maybe somebody to contact. Unemployed you're reporting to a job within 30 days, temporarily laid off from their work. So you're basically unemployed. You got to be looking for work. Okay. And you got to make the attempts. You got to do that. And it's within the past 4 weeks. If you're not looking for work, you're not attempting, then you won't be unemployed and you won't be part of the labor force. So a person not looking for work could be full-time students, stay-at-home parents, discouraged workers, retirees. So these are people not in the labor force. So I do get frustrated. I do think our labor force participation rate is a little too low, but realize it's typically in the 62 to 65%. So the reason why our labor force participation rate is so low compared to other countries, I think is because we have a lot of retirees. We might have a lot of full-time students. We might even have a lot of people that are disabled and they cannot work. So one of those things you have to realize, these people are not in the labor force and they're not included in unemployment. 100% of the people will never be employed. That's never going to happen. Government considers 4 to 6% unemployment to be full employment. We talked in class, maybe we need to reduce it. Maybe it should be 3 to 5%. Maybe Andrew Yang is right, and maybe it should be higher because we're going to have automation, we're going to have lose jobs, so maybe it should be 8%. But right now we're looking at 4 to 6%, and typically the government decides what it is. It's not a number that if you do fiscal policy or monetary policy, are you going to change the natural rate of unemployment? No, you're not going to change full employment. This is when a government guru will actually change it or do that. These are the types of unemployment: frictional, it's temporary, it's unavoidable, I quit, you get fired. Structural is a bad one, I don't like it. It's changes in technology, changes in a business, changes in the economy. Structural is like we went from agriculture economy to manufacturing economy, and all those farmers lost jobs. Then we went from manufacturing economy to a service economy, and all of those people that worked in, mass production lost their jobs. And then we're now going to information, and a lot of people in retail will be losing their jobs, and we're going to be going to information. So that's structural. Typically, it's with technology or business restructure. Seasonal unemployment is when industries slow down or shut down for a season. Typically, it's construction. It's in the South, not in the South, but in the wintertime. And then cyclical is decline from a business cycle. So our unemployment right now is cyclical because of the coronavirus. It's not seasonal, it's not structural, it's not frictional. It's cyclical due to what's going on. We can never be at full employment if there's any percentage cyclically unemployed. Okay. Here is the natural rate. It's frictional plus structural. They make up the natural rate. We're at full employment if we only have the natural rate of unemployment. This is the normal amount of unemployment that we should have. Number of job seekers equals the number of job vacancies. No cyclical unemployment is part of natural rate, 4 to 6%. And I don't know where these numbers are at this point in time, and I'll probably get them to you later, but anybody here what the unemployment rate is for the month of March?
No, what is it?
I think it was 4.8%.
Okay.
Now, it was, let's see what we got. We had 30 million people seek unemployment in the last 6 weeks. So that we'll have to watch to see what happens. And let's see, unemployment rate. Okay, BLS has got 4.4% for the month of March. And then in February, it was 3.5. In January, it was 3.6. December was 3.5. So obviously, they're probably different in seasons. So the lowest we've had is 3.5%. And let's see, when Trump started office, so January 2017, it was 4.7%. And then January 2018, it was 4.1%. January 2019, 4%. So we've been in that 4 to 6% range for a long time. I think the last time it was outside of 6% was August of 2014. So that's when it was above 6%. Now, I don't know Arizona. Unemployment. And typically states are higher, but you never know. Let's see. Arizona unemployment rate. I can't even spell it. It's 5.5. So the US was 4.4. In March, it was 5.5 for Arizona. California was 5.3, Nevada was 6.3. So you see the difference in the variance in there. So criticisms of the unemployment rate. Why is it wrong, understated, overstated? It can misdiagnose the actual unemployment rate because of the following things: discourage job seekers. Some people are no longer working for a job because they've given up. And Do any of you know anybody that's unemployed? Did have a job and then lost it?
I do.
Who?
It's one of my mom's friends.
Are they looking for a job?
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's good.
My sister filed for unemployment the other day because she had a job at college, and
Mhm.
now she doesn't.
No, and I agree with that. They should be filing for unemployment. My question is, who would be looking for a job when it's
No,
you
yeah,
know,
she
we're in a
filed
lot.
for unemployment, but she's still like trying to find something because her and two of her sons who are in college, both like all three of them lost their jobs. So
Yeah.
they're trying to find some sort of more income.
No, I agree. I just don't know. I mean, how many people are actually looking for jobs compared to the ones that are just taking unemployment and wait until this go over? Because if I am a restaurant person and say I'm working in, Chipotle or something like that, and I get fired or not fired, just laid off or whatever, I'm not going to find another job in the restaurant business, am I? That's where I'm looking at. I'm like, it's going to be real hard to get it. So I think we might have a lot of discouraged workers in there. They're not looking until things get better.
We had some people in our restaurants, I think this is what my dad was saying, I'm not exactly sure, but they quit and then filed for unemployment.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so that's
And
not so fast, but
this should typically unemployment hurts the business because if you've got unemployment claims, it hurts your insurance. I don't think this will because this is economy wise. And this is one of the negatives about just giving people $600 extra over, like if Arizona pays somebody $200 a week and then the federal government's giving them $600 a week, then they're getting $800. Now, granted, it's not forever, it's not a long time. Why would I look for work?
yeah.
My sister said that you didn't have to prove that you had been looking.
Correct. This is the thing right now. Typically you will, but because of the coronavirus, it's almost, why would you look? Because number one, you're going to get paid no matter what. Number two, there's not a lot of jobs out there where people are saying, I'm hiring. I don't see a lot of them, but again, I'm not out there that much either. Other criticisms of the unemployment rate is part-time workers who used to make $50,000, $100,000, who are making $5.50 an hour or $7.25 an hour, whatever. They want more shifts. They want full time. They want real income, but they're not included in the unemployment rate. And then, of course, you have the race and age inequalities. Teenagers have higher unemployment than regular adults. Hispanics, African Americans have more unemployment than whites. And then, of course, there's illegal labor, basically where, undocumented people and doing that kind of stuff, or just working under the table, the dreaded babysitter, and that kind of stuff. So these are reasons why the unemployment rate might be off different. So anybody have any questions on what we covered? Anybody have any questions? We covered circular flow, GDP, components of GDP, real versus nominal, inflation, unemployment. So tomorrow, what do you want to go over? What do you want to do? Do you want to do calculations and practice that? Do you want to do a scenario? See if I can find any scenarios and things for you to do. And I think I have some. What do you want to do for tomorrow? What do you think you want to cover?
Could we do
scenarios sorry. Go ahead.
could we do maybe like a little bit of both, like maybe like 2 calculation ones just to refresh our memory and then do a scenario one?
We can absolutely do calculations. We can absolutely do those. And then, calculate the change in GDP. I mean, there was one of the things where I used to have you do was calculate nominal GDP, calculate real GDP, calculate the deflator, calculate inflation. And that's kind of a good refresher. Might do that. And just, so that's fine. Which one do you feel the worst in that you need more help in, and just re-going over if I showed a video or something? You feel worse in GDP, unemployment, or inflation? So that means everybody feels great in everything, right?
I feel the worst about inflation, but
That's fine.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, they're all pretty good, but probably inflation is the worst for me.
So some calculations and then scenarios just to go over and look at for tomorrow, correct?
Yep.
All right, so let's stop here and we're going to go back here for just a brief second. Maybe I do want to do that. Okay, there we go. So Lauren and Abby, you guys came a little bit late. This is the folder, the area, the AP macro review resources and links. So this is where I put Unit 1 problem set, Unit 1 summary PowerPoint. This is where I put Monday's video. This is Tuesday's video. And then I will probably, I haven't decided yet whether I'm going to do review videos together or I might just say, okay, Unit 2, this is today, Unit 2 review video, and then I'll put the date and put it right here. Is that okay?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So that's where any of the videos are. I also have it on my YouTube channel, and they're there. So I put it from here to there, so you all will be able to have access to these and look at these. And do look at the YouTube channel, because I do have lots and lots of macro videos and stuff, and I think I might even have them on this thing here. So, but that's where I'm going to be putting our review videos. Okay?
Okay.
All right,
Thank you
guys.
so much, Mr. Guy.
Yeah,
You're
thank
welcome.
you.
Be
Bye.
good.
Have a
Bye,
good
guys.
rest of your day. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.